things that have been mentioned in their agenda has been a focus on cases against employers, in priority industries. Wow. So our government, with its limited power in the Constitution, but its wide open presidential governing regulation power, is going to focus, as you would expect an Obama White House to do, are going to focus on any case they can find against an employer and make it a priority. And there are certain industries that they want to prioritize. They want to cut and litigate causes that cut across regions. They want to work to identify and pursue test cases to challenge legal principles that impede, in their opinion, worker protections. Successful challenges will advance worker rights as well as successful enunciation of new interpretations. Are you serious? Hell, I don't even understand half of that. They're wanting to reinterpret everything. Now, I love the song of John Lennon's Power to the People, but if it's my business and it's my money out there in that business and it's my butt on the line for that business, screw power to the people. Screw the Labor Department's attorneys. I don't need these guys coming in and suing me because they want to give all of the rights to workers when it's me that's got my butt on the line. But here's the one that really just stirs me good. They want to engage in greater use of injunctive relief. Now, if these four things ought to tell you, first of all, we've got 400 plus labor lawyers. And when you say labor and lawyer in the same breath, then Blitzkrieg has got to come to mind, because these are all litigation cases. These are all cases to where they can try to circumvent the law legally by legal maneuvering and by trying to tell the court that something means something that it doesn't. And I don't even know if that sounded right after it came out. But isn't that what the progressives, the liberals, are trying to do with the Constitution already? Aren't they trying to test the language of the Constitution so that it means something totally different? Isn't this the reason Elaine Kagan had a problem? Because I read some things that she interpreted from the Constitution, and I swear I can't find the words that she's using that are remotely close to that. These people are pushing, and they're pushing hard. And what I want you to do, we're not through showing you what Obama's doing, but what you've got to do is you've got to understand that this guy is governing this country by regulation, and if he don't get what he wants, and the only one he's not been able to get around so far is the omnibus bill. He's not been able to get around that. He'll do it somehow. If you read the book Broke, you'll find maybe some of the ways that Beck in his book says that spending can go on where the president doesn't really have to consult anybody in order to get it spent. but we need to start watching very closely every piece of legislation, because the next 2 years are going to be tough, because he's not going to get what he wants with a conservative House and a near conservative Senate. And you're going to see Obama governing by regulation a lot. That's the reason we chose to talk about this subject. I tell you, one of the biggest stories of the last 15 months has been other than Obamacare. And when Obamacare was being debated, like it was debated long enough, we needed a couple of years to debate on it. There was proposal in Obamacare that encouraged end-of-life planning. Now, what that is a fancy phrase for is a death panel. And you heard Sarah Palin talk about it a lot because she read the legislation. Now, in the New York Times today, as a matter of fact, there is a story, and you can look it up on the website. Obama returns to end-of-life plan that caused stir. Wait a minute. Obama returns to end-of-life plan that caused stir? What in the world? What in the world are we talking about? Well, when this end-of-life thing touched off an absolute hurricane about death panels, the Democrats dropped this end-of-life planning or the death panels from the legislation when they overhauled everything they could to try to get it passed in the Senate. But what we're finding out now is, and the New York Times got to be about as liberal as anybody you've met. And what you find out now is that the Obama administration is going to achieve the very same thing as the end-of-life planning, which is the same thing as saying death panel. He's going to achieve the same thing by regulation starting January the 1st. And if you're not outraged about this, you got to get outraged about it. Under the new policy outlined in the Medicare regulation, okay, the government will pay doctors who advise patients on options for end-of-life care, which can include advance directives to forego aggressive life-sustaining treatment. What is that? What is that language, folks? That language is nothing more than end-of-life planning and nothing more than the doctors are going to choose and talk into who should live and who should die. Now, those Congress people that are really that really wanted this thing, like Princess Pelosi, Harry Reid, Barney Fife, these guys, they're pleased that this stuff's getting in there. But they've been told to keep it quiet because they're concerned that if the Republicans, particularly the ones in 2009 and the ones who are coming in now who are so opposed to it, that they'll use these arguments to try to do away with Obamacare. So while they're real happy and while they're trying their best to get this end of life planning thing in there, they don't want you to know they're happy about it. Now, don't be dismayed. The final version of the health care legislation that Obama signed into law in March authorized Medicare coverage of yearly physicals and our wellness visits. The new rule says Medicare will cover voluntary advanced care planning to discuss end-of-life treatment as part of the annual visit. Okay, what did we just find out? We just found out that the big stir for death panels, for doctors to determine, or not really doctors, I guess it would be, for the people who approve the expenses to keep old folks alive, end-of-life planning, that now we have written regulations to a part of the law that says that doctors can do annual physicals and wellness visits, but now the regulation says that they can do, quote, end-of-life treatment as part of their annual visit. Is it just me? If somebody wants to call in, you got 714-242-5223, or you can call in on through the show on Skype. But is it just me? Am I just reading this and I'm interpreting it all wrong? Under this new rule, a doctor can provide information to patients on how to prepare an advance directive. I'm not sure that's what doctors should be doing. On how aggressively they wish to be treated if they are so sick that they can't make their own health decisions for themselves. Now, I have a health directive, but it's my feelings and not a doctor telling me how I should feel, or a medical panel, or people that approve the payment of my bills. It's me. Now, this law, as far as I can tell, and I haven't read it all, I'm worse than they are. I've read parts of it. But as far as I know, the new law does not mention advanced care planning. This administration's been able to achieve the policy goal of this kind of end-of-life planning through regulation, writing a process, a strategy that becomes more prevalent in the next 2 years as this president deals with a Congress who's not going to give him what he wants. He's going to regulate. We're going to write a process for what you can do. Did you ever wonder why it took so long after a tax law was written, approved by Congress, why it took so long for that law to actually be on the books with Internal Revenue Service? It's because the IRS then has to write up the rules and regulations about the law. Do you really think that all of the tax laws work as they were intended sometime by the Congress? No.